All right. Hello, everyone. I'm going to continue now with experiment 2, which is on page 41 of E Squared by Pam Grout. Before I get to that, I'm sure some of you didn't see the video that I posted about experiment 1. In brief, I feel that I did receive a blessing. I posted about it, said, was this one of the blessings from experiment 1, is what the video says. I saw this reaction to the movie The Truman Show. If you watch movie reactions, I really enjoy watching movie reactions. I've watched a lot of movie reactions on YouTube. And this one popped up, and I didn't know who this person was. I've never seen her before, and she has over 90,000 subscribers, so she's clearly a very successful channel. And I wasn't planning on watching it. I've watched The Truman Show a couple times. I've seen several reactions to it. And it kept popping up every time I clicked on YouTube. It's like, it's still there. And it's just like, well, maybe I'm supposed to watch it. And I didn't know why. And it was the most moving reaction to that movie I've watched. Possibly the most moving reaction I've watched, period. I was very touched by it. And I felt like that was the blessing that I received. There is another one that happened the other day. I guess I'll mention it real quickly. I'm a big lover of black licorice, but I can't eat it anymore because it doesn't go well in your digestive system. The thick black licorice, I crave that stuff like candy. And my friend had some. I'm over at my friend's house. We're playing pool, and he goes, "You can have it. I don't care. Have it." And I thought, I shouldn't eat it. But then something said to me like, why don't you eat it and see if it will nourish your body? Maybe I can use my mind, because Joseph Murphy says external things are not causative, and I said, drink a bottle of vodka and get back to me. What do you mean that they're not? But I all of a sudden I had this feeling like I bet I can eat this and it won't affect me. Not only will it not affect me, but it will be healthy for my body. It'll nourish my body. And so I started eating this black licorice. I ate about 10 pieces. And the entire time I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be nothing but healthy for me. This is going to bless me. You're going to bless me now a second time with this. And I didn't have any issues at all. Nothing. I'm fine. I had to stop eating that stuff because, it affects your body. So that was wild. I am so interested in this blessing, because who wouldn't be, that I said, feel free to give me a blessing every day. I'm not going to look for it. Whatever you want to do is great, but I'd love to have a blessing every day. Anything, even if it's insignificant, I don't care. I want more of this. So that's how that went, and it was pretty wild. But I'm going to start, before I read experiment 2. 3 quotes. The way we have been perceiving life needs to be rolled away so that which is true can appear. It's by Michelle Longo O'Donnell, creator of Living Beyond Disease. It was early on in the pages, XII, and then it's the next page right there on the book. I'll just show you that quote. That's a pretty cool quote. And of course, the one I might just keep reading. Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man. Albert Einstein, German theoretical physicist. The fact that Albert Einstein said that, I can't ignore that. And I really would like to know how an atheist interprets that. So if any of you out there are an atheist, if you could just say, hey, here's what it means to me. You don't make too much of it. I would love to hear it. And lastly, from Neville Goddard, man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness. To which I want to ask anyone who can answer this. Does that mean that our state of consciousness caused Donald Trump and all the other evils in the world? That all of these things are caused by our state of consciousness and nothing else? Or is he referring to our individual lives? I think that's what he's referring to. Our chief delusion is that there are causes for us other than our own state of consciousness. Okay. But I'm pretty sure that our consciousness did, maybe our collective consciousness did bring about Trump. I don't know. I hope not. Anyway, page 41, experiment 2, the Volkswagen Jetta principle. And now I'm going to apply this, and I'll either do another video 48 hours from now, which would be Wednesday evening, or Thursday. It'll be Wednesday or Thursday, just depending on what's going on with me. I keep posting other videos. I just posted a video about my Dragon dice collection. If anybody's interested in taking a look at it, if you don't know what Dragon dice is, I think you'll enjoy looking at the pretty dice. It's pretty cool. All right. You impact the field and draw from it according to your beliefs and expectations. Quote, miracles are like pimples because once you start looking for them, you find more than you ever dreamed you'd see. Oh, let that be true. Let that be true. Lemony Snicket, a.k.a. Daniel Handler, in a series of unfortunate events. I don't know what a series of unfortunate events is. Okay, the premise. What shows up in our lives is a direct reflection of our inner thoughts and emotions. Okay. My friend Linda told me an amazing story about a young woman she once observed at the airport. This poor young thing was struggling with 3 heavy bags, but worse than the unwieldiness of her baggage was her less than positive attitude. With great gusto, she was vocalizing her immense disgust at a lack of help. Why, she kept shouting, is the bus taking so long? Where in the hell is that bus? This is completely unacceptable. Linda said she might have felt sorry for the girl, except that the very bus she was criticizing was 5 feet in front of her with its door wide open. Twice the bus circled, each time stopping to pick up passengers, but the irate young woman could not see it. The bus, thanks to her intense commitment to struggle and anger, was literally out of her energetic sphere. That's why I named... Boy, that sounds made up. Sorry, Pam, that sounds made up. But okay, I'm said I'm going to take everything and accept it, but woo, that's a hard one. That's why I named this principle after a popular model of car. What was that again? Jetta? The Volkswagen Jetta. Okay. I mean, I guess I could see somebody doing something silly like that. I guess I could see it happening. Once a new model or make or brand enters your sphere of awareness, you suddenly notice it everywhere. And that's what happens when we devote our minds to things we do not want. Lack, unhappiness, and danger are no more prevalent than a Volkswagen Jetta. But once we bring them into our consciousness, they sadly take over. According to physicists, there's a 0-point field, what I call the field of potentiality, or the FP, where every possibility exists. Okay, I've heard this before, obviously not just from Pam, but I've never heard it called the, let me say that again, field of potentiality, the FP. For example, there's the possibility you could be a ballerina, another that you could be a U.S. senator. Still, another possibility is being a bag lady in Haight-Ashbury. When it comes to the FP, the possibilities are infinite. I know my friend was a militant atheist, raised in a Baptist home, became an atheist, became a evangelical Christian, became a Calvinist Christian, went back to being a militant atheist, only to go to seminary for 4 years, study, and now he's a conservative pastor in a conservative church in Nebraska. Blew my mind. He's my friend. We play Dungeons and Dragons together. I would love to have a discussion with him, but he's kind of busy. But it blows my mind. Okay, since I'm not a physicist and can barely pronounce the name David Bohm, BOHM, let alone understand his theory of layered realities, I prefer to think of the field as a gigantic Walmart with hundreds of thousands of products. Maybe that's what heaven is. Big shopping mall. Hundreds of thousands of products or possibilities. This is probably a good time to mention I'm not a fan of Walmart, thank goodness, that I've never quite been able to forgive the corporate giant for running my favorite corner pharmacy and fabric store out of business. Do y'all know that whenever a Walmart would open in America, approximately 100 small businesses go out of business? It's the most anti-American, illegal thing that they could never have done this back in the 50s. It would have been illegal. It's evil. They're destroying American business. All of corporations are driving small businesses out of business. Literally the opposite of what America was supposed to be. Free enterprise, land of opportunity. Nope. It's all been given to the corporations. And why don't we see this? Why don't we see that the corporations are the problem? It's not government's the problem. It's the corporations are the problem. Well, and because of that, now government's the problem. Okay, I got to stop commenting. I'll just read now. I'll try to stop. All right. But as a single mom on a budget, I do occasionally lower myself to shop there. And when I do, I know just where to find the fabric, the puzzles, the kids' shoes, all things I've been known to purchase. But I'm completely oblivious to most of the hundreds of thousands of products on the shelves. Why? Because they're not what I'm looking for. That doesn't mean they're not there. Doesn't mean they're not as real as the puzzles and shoes. It just means I'm not aware of them. For example, my daughter once came home from school with head lice. After panicking and briefly considering throwing myself off the nearest bridge, I finally concluded I would provide a much better parental example by going in search of lice shampoo. Sure enough, on an aisle at Walmart, I'd walked down dozens, probably hundreds of times, was a complete selection of lice shampoo. Why had I never noticed it before? Because it wasn't what I was looking for. I totally agree. The chains that bind us. Quote, your wildest misperceptions, your weird imaginings, your blackest nightmares all mean nothing. From A Course in Miracles. Someone asked me if I'd consider reading A Course in Miracles. Maybe. I'd have to purchase the book, but I assume it's a really, really long book. Would you all like me to read that on the channel? I mean, I can think about it. If enough people want me to do it, I can certainly look into it. I can probably order a book on Amazon. Anyway, a few years ago, a sweepstakes agency gave away 100 free trips to anywhere winners wanted to go. That meant lucky winners could fly to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower, or jet to Australia and climb Ayers Rock, or lounge on a beach in the Caribbean islands, or Caribbean islands if you prefer. And you know what? 95% of the winners picked a destination within 4 hours of their home. 4 hours. That pretty much sums up the human condition. So much is out there, but most of us choose to stay within 4 hours of our comfort zones. I'm pretty sure if I was really, really wealthy and could afford it, I would go to Rome and Italy and all the great places in the world. I'm pretty sure I would, just because I'd want to see them. We refuse to budge even when there's ample evidence we're missing out on big things. Without being truly conscious of it, we spend the lion's share. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would. Maybe I'm too comfortable where I am. I don't know. We spend the lion's share of our waking hours immersed in the comfort zone of negativity. Yeah. The pull of the negative is so strong that many of us navigate our entire days jumping from one depressing thought to another. I overslept again. This war is unconscionable. The economy is in shambles. Gas is expensive. My boss, or my kid, or my fill in the blank, is driving me crazy. Negativity and fear start the minute we're born. It's a scary world out there, Jimmy. Don't you dare talk to strangers. Don't you dare sing that silly song at the grocery store. Someone might hear. We learn to limit. We learn to believe in scarcity. We learn that our natural inclination to love and to create and to dance is impractical and crazy. Our parents think it's their sworn duty to teach us to be careful, to be responsible, to act like adults. And if for some reason we're lucky enough to get parents who don't dispense these lessons, our culture quickly indoctrinates us into believing that collecting material things is our purpose in life, and that the only way to get those goodies is to put our proverbial noses to the grindstone. By the time we're in grade school, we're already masters at competition, old pros at living in scarcity and fear. But guess what? It's all a big ruse, a bad habit. As A Course in Miracles clearly states, once you develop a thought system of any kind, you live by it and teach it. Sure. Once you form a belief, you attach all your senses and all your life to its survival. Yeah, that's why religion works. Physicists call this phenomenon collapse of the wave. Infinite numbers of quantum particles are out in the universal field, dancing around, spreading out in waves. The moment someone looks at these energy waves, they solidify like gelatin in the refrigerator. Your observing is what makes them appear solid. That blew my mind when that was found, the double slit experiment on YouTube. Anyone look at that, the double slit experiment? Curious what your thoughts are of it. Your observing is what makes them appear solid, real, material. Remember in Disney's Snow White, when she's lying on the forest floor crying, she feels as if all these eyes are staring at her. And indeed, dozens of forest creatures are skittering and scampering about. But the moment she raises her head to look, all the cute little birds, squirrels, and deers dive behind trees. All she can see is a solid, unmoving forest. In reality, our universe is a moving, scampering energy field with infinite possibilities. But because our eyes have locked in on problem mode, that's what appears to be reality. In bold, it sure looks like reality. In parentheses, it's still in bold, or you'll see it when you believe it. Yeah. Quote, you will not break loose until you realize that you yourself forged the chains that bind you. Arton in The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. In 1970, Colin Blakemore and G.F. Cooper, scientists at Cambridge University, did a fascinating experiment with kittens. This must have been before animal rights activists got vocal, because what they did was take a litter of kittens and deprive them of light, except for once a day for just an hour or two, when the scientists beamed in just enough light for the kittens to see a couple of vertical black and white stripes. That's it. A couple of hours, a couple of stripes. Now, I don't know whether their consciences finally got the better of them, or whether some PETA-type predecessors started breathing down their necks, but after several months, they released the kittens from the dark. What they discovered was the kittens' cortical cells in the eyeball, for those of you who aren't scientifically minded, that favored non-vertical orientation had gone into hibernation. They could no longer make out horizontal lines. How would you know that? They literally bumped into horizontal ropes, that were stretched out in front of them. Oh, okay. In 1961, when anthropologist Colin Turnbull studied pygmies, he took one of his subjects outside of the forest where he lived. Since he'd never been exposed to wide open plains, the pygmy's sense of depth did the same disappearing act as the kitten's cortical cells. Turnbull pointed out a herd of buffalo in the distance, and the pygmy, whose depth perception was distorted, refused to believe it. It has to be ants, he insisted. His perceptions were influenced by what he had been conditioned to see. As thinking beings, we continually try to make sense of our world. Sounds like a good thing, right? Except that any piece of information that doesn't quite fit with our beliefs, we alter without even noticing. We knead and we squeeze until everything finally fits into the tight box of our limited belief system. Wow. We think what we perceive with our senses is true, but the fact that I will keep banging you over the head with is it's only 1/2 of 1/1,000,000% of what's possible. Okay. At the base of the brainstem, about the size of a gumdrop, is a group of cells whose job is to sort and evaluate incoming data. This control center, known as the reticular activating system, RAS, has the job of sending what it thinks is urgent to the active part of the brain and to steer the non-urgent stuff to the back. This is reminding me of Wim Hof. If you guys aren't familiar with Wim Hof, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on him. Check him out on YouTube, The Wim Hof Method. There are testimonials. I think he's talked about that part of the brain in one of his things where he's guiding people through breathing. I think so. I think it's the one that I listen to, actually. Anyway, when I do my breathing exercises every morning. I try to do them every morning. But as it's organizing, it's also busy interpreting, drawing inferences, and filtering out anything that doesn't jibe with what we believe. So change our beliefs and we'll start seeing things differently? Okay, maybe. In other words, we rehearse ahead of time the world we want to see. Too bad we all picked up the wrong script. This simple 48-hour experiment will prove that what you see in life is none other than what you look for. It will also prove that it's possible to find anything you look for. And most important, it will prove that by changing what you look for, you can radically change what shows up in your world. Okay, it says anecdotal evidence. Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Bumper sticker seen in Lawrence, Kansas. Good. You've probably never heard of Peter and Eileen Caddy, but I'll bet the name Findhorn rings a bell. Remember that garden in Findhorn? Really? Remember that garden in Scotland that yielded cabbages big enough to knock over a postal truck? Well, Peter and Eileen Caddy are the folks who grew those 40-pound cabbages. Keep in mind that the average cabbage is 4 pounds, 5 ounces. And they did it by focusing their thoughts on a higher truth. They certainly didn't have anything else going for them. In fact, when the Caddies, their 3 sons, and fellow spiritual seeker Dorothy McLean moved into the trailer on that wind-blown peninsula jutting out into the North Sea, the land could best be described as dead and profitless. Nobody in their right mind would have chosen it as a spot to grow anything, let alone a garden. The soil, if you could call it that, consisted of rocks and sand. The gales were strong enough to knock over the average second grader, and their less than better homes locale was smack dab between a garbage dump and a dilapidated garage. But by focusing on a higher truth, they created a garden that can only be described as miraculous. Although it was the 40-pound cabbages that got all the publicity, the Caddies also grew 65 other types of vegetables, 21 kinds of fruit, and 42 different herbs. And this is before they started adding flowers. I know what you're thinking. Rich compost and good organic husbandry. But the truth is, the Caddies' soil was so pathetic that the county extension agent said even compost couldn't help. At the time they started their experiment in higher consciousness, the Caddies had never gardened, nor did they have money to invest in gardening supplies. They were broke, to put it mildly. Peter, who had managed a successful 4-star hotel, had been laid off, and the 6 of them were living on unemployment that amounted to roughly $20 a week. No, they started growing vegetables for one reason. They thought it might be a nice gesture to feed their 3 growing boys. But as they began aligning their consciousness with spiritual truth and nothing else, all sorts of strange things started happening. Then why hasn't this become the way of the world? Straw bales fell off passing trucks just in time to mulch. Leftover bags of cement mix mysteriously showed up in a neighbor's trash bin just in time to pour a patio. Their plants, while the crops of their neighbors suffered, became resistant to diseases and pests. Eventually, people started flocking to the Caddies' garden, and today, Findhorn is a prosperous spiritual community that attracts 14,000 seekers every year. As Peter says, you can bring about anything by your thoughts. Wow, this is unreal. Align yourself with God consciousness, and you can bring about truth in material form. What you think, you create. There is no power on earth that can cut you off from this source except your own consciousness. Jeez. The method. Everything we think we're seeing is all just a guess, a prediction our brains are making. said Kurt Anderson, author of True Believers. For the next 48 hours, that's all, a pain-free 2-day commitment. You are free to go back to your miserable life as soon as this experiment is over. You are going to actively look for certain things. And just like 6th graders who start out dissecting worms, not human bodies, you're going to begin with something simple. Green cars. Or if you insist, pick another color. Sunset beige, for example. For the first 24 hours of the experiment, you're going to make the following conscious intention. I hereby intend for the next day of my life to look for, then she puts in brackets, okay, you win, sunset beige vehicles. All right. Again, nothing special is required. Just keep your eyes open and make the intention. And then simply notice if your conscious awareness has made a difference in the number of sunset beige cars you see. Yeah, but how is that the same as the people who grew stuff that couldn't grow where they grew it in ways that no one's ever grown stuff before? I'm not making the connection there. I thought this was going to be something more along the lines of miraculous, not on probabilities appear because you're looking for them. But okay, still an interesting experiment. On day 2, during the second 24-hour period, you're going to make the intention to find, yellow butterflies, okay? Or purple feathers. Just make the intention. My friend Jeanette tried the experiment in January in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and found yellow butterflies on stationery and on a paper cup at her daughter's friend's birthday party. Oh, cute. Neat. I like that. Another friend, Angela, was reading The Secret on a plane. This popular book on the universal law of attraction suggested that readers make an intention to receive a free cup of coffee. She laughed because, after all, the onboard flight attendant was just 2 aisles away from asking her that important flight attendant question, coffee, tea, or soda. That isn't quite fair, she noted, making the intention and moving on to the next paragraph. But during her layover, a stranger who was sitting near her in the waiting lounge leaned over and said, "My flight was just called. I can't carry anything else. I haven't even taken a sip. Do you want this?" You guessed it. It was a just brewed Starbucks latte. Now that's cool. That's great. So, lab report sheet, the principle, the Volkswagen Jetta principle, the theory. You impact the field and draw from it according to your beliefs and expectations. I want to try something more along the lines of the caddies, but I'll do that later. Because why not? They did it. The question, do I really see only what I expect to see? I mean, Pam, do you realize what I could do if this is true? What I could make appear? Because after all, we only see a teeny tiny part. All right. Time required, 48 hours. Yes, I'm talking to Pam as though she's listening. I know. All right, so I'll put in today's date and time. I don't remember what today's date is. It's on my phone. The approach. According to this crazy Pam Grout girl, I like the way you write when you write stuff like that. That's funny. That's good. The world out there reflects what I want to see. All my dirty thoughts are going away now. Okay. She says that it's nothing but my own illusions that keep me from experiencing peace, joy, and love. Oh, not sex? Okay. So even though I just couldn't resist. So even though I suspect she's cracked today, I'm going to look for sunset beige cars. Or pick some other color. But I'll go with sunset beige. I have to look up what that color scheme is. Tomorrow, I'll go butterfly hunting. Yes, very cool. A, number of sunset beige cars observed. B, number of butterflies observed. Research notes. Quote, miracles do not happen in contradiction to nature, but only in contradiction to what is known in nature. St. Augustine, Latin philosopher and theologian. And I just have to say this one more time. According to this crazy Pam Grout girl, the world out there reflects what I want to see. Well, alrighty then. I'm going to enjoy doing this. It's been about 30 minutes. Hope you enjoyed me reading it. Sorry if anything I said offended you. I'm just having fun and being lighthearted about this. And I'll talk to y'all, talk to y'all later. Hope we all find sunset beige cars and butterflies and whatever else we want to see. Talk to you. Bye bye.